as
I
a
like
princess.
that. I hope they said, I wish I wasn't my dad mad at me.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like that shit. It was very much like
Just like popping up and going, I'm not wearing a hockey pants.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Nerd On, the podcast you didn't need but deserve, where all levels of nerd are welcome. Whether you're a writer, director, screenwriter, producer,
Or all of the above.
or camera operator.
Except for today.
Yes. Today, we take a topic that's been in the back of our heads for months and recently has been mentioned in our Nerd On update. Check out the show. And from user A.S. Newton. So the minds
Yeah,
behind...
shout out.
Yeah. We're going to talk about the minds behind some of the greatest orchestrations of our imagination. Today, we're talking about directors. In Directors Are Us.
Oh, yeah.
It's been a while. It's been a while since we've done an RS.
Yeah.
Those are always my
good,
favorite.
man.
Let's get the show on the road. My name is Tom.
Ali?
Caitlin.
Corey.
And I am Josh, and this episode is brought to you in part by the Nerd On Nation, powered by Patreon.
Patreon.
If you are new to Patreon, and what that is essentially an exclusive membership service in which you can support your favorite creators like Nerd On. Fun stuff. And for as little as $1 to $5 a month, you can get exclusive content. You can get a Discord server that is hopping all the time, from gardening to comic books.
Guys, you even
It's-
get discounts.
and
Yeah.
discounts to our
Like-
merch.
You even get me.
You get money back, baby.
Yeah.
Pictures of
Little kitties.
Yeah, and sometimes the discount is more than the Patreon, so it's fun.
Yeah.
I love discounts. But yeah, check that out, nerdon.io/Patreon.
That was it.
That's
Cool.
it.
That's it. All right, directors.
So, yeah, housekeeping.
Yeah, the housekeeping is done. Normally in our shows where we've been doing movies and TV shows lately, we go with like brief synopsis, guess that grump, all that stuff. We're not
Production.
doing that.
Yeah.
throwing that out the window.
Yeah.
We're just having a discussion.
We're just going to discuss some of our favorite directors because the
Some
question,
hot goss about our favorite director.
the question
even mean?
that was posed to us was, what are your favorite directors? And I think leading the conversation, we should kind of think introspectively about what a director is, why are they important to us? And we're mainly talking about film, TV, things that people, they're the ones that answer the questions and lead the creative journey for the projects that we have been most
Correct.
influenced by.
Yeah.
So let's first kind of just go an overhead a little bit, like directors. Like
Yes.
what is important about a director from all of us? And I think it's important to include the discussion of there is a difference between like a writer-director, an auteur, a director that's very collaborative, directors from TV shows, directors from movies, directors who shouldn't be directors. So stuff like that.
For those who don't know, Tom, you'll explain this the best. An auteur.
Good layup. And I just went, what? Foul line.
Yeah. I'm serious. There's
Yeah,
a lot of people
yeah.
who don't know.
So an auteur,
Michael Bay is
A-U-T-E-U-R, auteur. Auteur theory is pretty much a study or a comprised amount of collection of thoughts of how a director signs off their films. Pretty much they have their signatures around films, and they have
Wes Anderson, for example.
a central sense of how they construct meaning and tell stories and what matters to them the most. So if you go onto USA and watch a rerun of a Wes Anderson film, you can tell.
Yeah.
If you see a movie and there's a hot chick and there's some air blowing in her face and there's a lens flare,
Explosions.
it's Michael Bay.
Yeah.
If you see some guy's back and you see mostly neutral tones and like metallic orchestral music, it's probably Christopher Nolan.
Yeah.
If you see the character moving through the scene and the camera's doing nothing but following them, and if the character stops, the camera stops, it's probably David Fincher.
Yep.
So things like that, there are signatures that these directors do, and not a lot of those are celebrated or known about because it's hard to kind of, as Josh mentioned it along our episodes, it's hard to quantify art.
Yeah.
But some smart people who are smarter than I am and all of us try to.
Well, I had a discussion with my wife leading up to this episode.
Shout out to Bonnie.
Shout out to my wife, Bonnie. Because putting together a list like this it's an interesting experience because you kind of go through the gamut of what you like, the movies that you like, and then you start connecting the dots. And it's like with some directors, it's very, very easy to tell, like the ones that you mentioned, but there's also like Terry Gilliam, Tim Burton, these directors that you watch their film and you're like, oh, that's who
That's
that
very
is.
much
That's who that is. And you also have because Bonnie is also a writer, and I know that her style of writing, she's not one that likes to include a lot of direction. Whereas some writers, they do write. They write visually, like this is what's happening.
They're kind of
on the
writing for
screen.
themselves.
The camera
direct.
tilts up and we
yeah,
see.
yeah, exactly. And so it's very interesting to put together a list like this because you're like, okay, how much of it was the director? How much of it was the writing kind of going into the direction and the film as a whole? Or it's kind of a little bit of both. And
I think a great example for that as well is kind of like Aaron Sorkin.
yeah.
Aaron Sorkin writing is very signature. And then how does that work with David Fincher? And the way
We'll
that
go into that.
the way that works, David Fincher will tell
yeah.
Aaron Sorkin to shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
And then it's like, I'm directing this and I have final cut. And that's what happens. And that's the thing with auteurs. It's hard to not see, like in some sides of the coin, people might say like, oh, they're arrogant people who want only their vision. And other people are like, well, they're people that don't know how to collaborate. Versus other people will say like other directors like are only collaborators and they don't know how to have their own stake in the thing. Like we were talking about
Did you say
Aladdin.
steak?
And I was saying like it was really surprising to see Guy Ritchie actually have his directorial like signatures in there in a otherwise manufactured movie. And it's really tough to get away with that stuff when you have like, here's this guy, director. It's like, I don't know one thing. Like, look at Jon Favreau's movies. You can't really tell which ones of his
Wonderful
movies.
director.
Yeah.
But
But
it's not
like
his
it's
style.
more of a he's more of a collaborative director versus an auteur. And it's not like it's worse or less. I want to kind of compare it to women could see more colors than men. And so they could see like red or blood red, or they could see like higher hues of that stuff. Well, like it's not like we can't see it, but it's like there's just different shades of it, and there's a different spectrum of it.
Is
And
that, wait, is that a science thing?
that's
Yeah.
true.
Really?
Women could see more
Yeah,
colors than men.
it's written into one of my PA
Go
scripts.
you!
Wow.
How do
But
I
not
know
as,
this?
Not as many as the mantis shrimp.
Because no one teaches anyone anything about women when you're a kid.
And that's why we have Nerd on. Thank you. But yeah, so I think it's important to talk about directors specifically. It's not writers or us or producers. And we
Right.
can have those episodes too.
Yeah.
But
We will have those episodes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I liken myself as a director. I liken myself as a writer-director. And to me, what that means is like I can write my own scripts and I want it done in a certain way and I have a certain style that I want to do. I wouldn't call myself an auteur. I haven't made that many films to create my own thematic sense of meaning or all this stuff. There's things I want and things I want to have in all the things that I do. But to be considered an auteur is a high critical acclaim from a lot of people. And a lot of people tend to want to do that. But it's also like risk, right? So like if I wanted Ollie to like write the story for it and I tell him like, no, I'm not going to have this in my film, then it could be seen like I'm an asshole, and not collaborative, right? But then it's kind of like the pristine and prestige of all of it. But what I was saying was with directors, why we're talking about today, they do at the end of the day have to make a lot of decisions. And they do, the director, the word changes from theater to TV to film. The director means such a different thing in TV world than it does in theater and with film. And at some point, there is a level of decision making. There's some level point of collaboration. But at the end of the day, it's weird because they get a lot of the credit versus like writers are not highly, you don't hear Hollywood stories like they want to sleep with the writer, only in Californication. But that's the only sense.
Yeah.
But most of the time, they want to sleep
Shout
with the
out.
stars. They want to sleep with the producers. They want
Right.
blah, blah. But
Well, the thing that I've always noticed, with directors, anyways, is the fact that they're kind of seen as that visionary, right? Like their vision is what the film becomes, whether it's through their words or not. If it's through their own words, then it's almost as if it's sort of like they just have to go through the formality of writing it. It's all in their head. If you gave them a camera and a crew, they could just shoot it, But it's like you got to write it down. You got to do the formal process, whatever.
Yeah, they're the captain of the ship.
Yeah, and so like when you're with a different writer, the instant you have to collaborate, there's always going to be like some level of compromise somewhere where you might that's where you might lose some of that.
the funny thing that I want
Feel.
everyone to kind of take note of after listening to this episode is look at how many press tours that the actors go on to for blockbusters and then how much they do for artisan films. Because most of the time the artisan films are the ones that the directors are doing the press tours versus the actors.
Yeah.
The actors will do the big blockbusters because those are seat sellers. The directors are the seat sellers for the artisan films. Because people are like, I want to see Lars von Trier. I want to see him do the Dogma 99 and shit. So it's all that other stuff.
I
But
never thought about that, actually.
yeah. Without further ado, who wants to talk about their director they want to discuss?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I'm bringing two to the table, but I'm going to start with Fincher.
Who is David Fincher?
David Fincher is one of my favorite directors of all time. He has done things like Fight Club, Gone Girl. He recently helmed Mindhunter on Netflix. He did Social Network with Aaron Sorkin that we mentioned earlier.
Alien 3.
I was going to say his directorial debut was Alien 3. He started as a special effects guy.
Yeah.
And was just given this movie. What?
ILM, right?
At ILM, yeah. So he's given Alien 3. Not a great movie, beautifully directed.
Industrial Light Magic, Lucas,
yeah.
Lucas
Yeah.
stuff.
But when I first discovered him, it was because of Fight Club. So I moved to, I had watched it once or twice in high school, and I moved to New York all by myself, very lonely time, and I put Fight Club on repeat on my Blu-ray. I just had
Small
it
town boy.
on repeat and repeat and repeat. It's one of the few movies that I know inside and out. And he has a really interesting, there's an Every Frame of Painting video essay about him as a director, and it's a really wonderful thing.
Shout out
But
to
in
Tony
it,
Zhu.
they talk about how he likes to have his camera be omnipotent and just be kind of this like
Part of the
Force.
scene.
yeah, this unstoppable force in a scene, right? It's seeing things that you need to see, but other characters can't see.
They are
Right.
doomed to see what's happening.
There it is. And so he'll use a lot of these CGI shots. So especially in Fight Club, I don't know if you recall,
Nope.
but there's one shot where it goes through and down through an entire building, like different
Yeah.
floors, and into the back of one van, and then it goes through the windshield of another, and through another van, and it shows you this timer. So it's just a really unique way of filming things. He also has his aesthetic, which is usually again kind of muted colors and kind of gritty looking. He has this quote, because a lot of his stories are kind of those gritty, kind of down to earth, little tougher pill to swallow kind of stories.
Yeah.
There's a little voyeurism in there.
Little
as well.
voyeurism. And his quote is that he goes, "I believe everybody on some level is a pervert." And so then I'm trying to just tell that story. One of my favorites besides Fight Club, which I actually saw really late, was Social Network. Tom, you good?
So good. I think I was trying to get you to watch it, right?
Yeah, and then because I've always talked about how Aaron Sorkin's one of my favorite writers too, and he was like, "How the fuck have you not watched Social Network?
Yeah.
It's your favorite director and your favorite writer together." And we watched some behind the scenes stuff of it before, and it really was an interesting thing of seeing someone like Aaron Sorkin, who has such a unique tone, really kind of compromise but work together with David Fincher. And I think he said he really loved it, if I recall it. You recall it better than I do.
If anyone doesn't know, Aaron Sorkin did West Wing, did Moneyball, later on did Steve Jobs. And the thing about what he writes really fast. He writes 1,000 miles per hour.
Yeah.
And so everyone just speaks really like intelligently, which I think is a faux pas of intelligence. But they are actually able to get away with a lot of exposition by really quick dialogue. So I mean, he talks as fast as I talk sometimes. But he actually writes very dreamy. He writes to the better of our angels.
Yeah.
And he expects that there's goodness in people. And Fincher does not.
the opposite. Yeah. So it was a really interesting way to see them work together. And I think
Interesting.
it's up there with Fight Club and competition as my favorite Fincher film. I have some baggage with Fight Club, obviously. And listening to the director commentary, I just think he's a super intelligent guy, like highly imaginative. And I don't know if you guys out there listening have seen Mindhunter, but he has little quirks to the way he films. So not only does he use a lot of CGI with his camera that I love, but he does this thing. It's hard to describe without visually showing it, but the camera will follow slight movements his character does. So everything he does on set is highly choreographed.
I'm licking my lips.
Even
guys.
from
Oh.
someone slouching to sitting up straight tells a part of his story. And in those moments where you see someone slouch to sit up straight, the camera will actually dolly and follow them.
Whoa.
It doesn't tilt. It fucking moves itself. And
Yeah.
it's a harder move than you think it is.
And apparently it takes take after take after take to get it, but he's really dedicated. It happens a lot in Mindhunter. Someone will have a realization and they'll be maybe sitting forward on their knees and they'll go to sit all the way up and the camera doesn't, like you said, doesn't tilt up, but it literally lifts up on a crane or on a
Right.
dolly or something.
That sounds like a lot of extra effort.
So
But it's wonderful, but it tells a lot of stories.
He'll go as high
speaks
as 70
volumes, yeah.
takes.
Yeah.
Whoa.
But he'll also tell you to fuck off because he's like, I did it on the 7th take, so shut up.
Yeah. One thing that's kind of what ties me to him as a director is his use of the camera. It's a very unique presence in his storytelling.
Well, it allows you to, as an audience member, to be super engaged. And he'll, like most of Fincher's films, and it's lovely. And this is my favorite kind of film, is just dialogue between two characters that have different like viewpoints on each other.
Yeah.
And so you get to see the power struggles between each other. And Caitlin's just laughing at
He's
everything
making
I'm saying.
such a good
I
point.
don't
I know,
know
it's
how
so
else I-
exciting.
She's like,
Happen.
this fucking hack over here.
Yeah, Tom knows nothing about film.
But no, like it's really great that he does that because it like the opening sequence of Social Network is him is a main character and a girl breaking up. One of the best scenes in Seven is Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt like talking in an office. Like he'll always have those scenes, and somehow he'll make talking probably one of the boringest things you could do. We're talking right now as a podcast,
Yeah.
and people are listening to us because they have nothing better to do when they're driving, right? Like you're stuck with
Yeah,
us.
that's the
in
reason.
in a movie, like
Wow, Tom.
Wow.
well, I'm just saying, like audio. The thing about
I agreed with him. I was like, yeah.
well, another thing is like Josh,
What a piece
hear
of
me
shit.
out. You know this too. Audio is such an overlooked craft.
Yeah.
Dialogue is
Think
such
about
an
Fincher
overlooked.
as his sound design.
It's great.
It's great. Mindhunter. That is a
Di-
study.
Dialogue
in
is
sound
so
design.
overlooked, but he uses it in such an effective manner where you have films nowadays that throw boobs, machines, superpowers all in your face. He makes a dialogue scene more compelling than any of
Yeah.
those. How is that
this
possible?
This is the last thing I'll say on his camera movement. This is a mild spoiler for Mindhunter season 1. It doesn't spoil any of the story. It's a unique thing. Throughout the entire camera, he rarely shoots handheld. I think 7 is his film that he shoots the most handheld shots on. He really likes things executed to a certain way. So he either use dollies or he'll use sticks or he'll use whatever. The entirety of Mindhunter is shot on some sort of tripod, stabilization, something or other.
Dolly.
Some sort of dolly, some sort of track. The last episode has a moment where his character, so you're watching 10 episodes of this, 10 hours in, right? His character, your main character, feels uncertain for the first time. And he walks down this hallway and starts to have a panic attack. And halfway down the hallway, we're on a tracking shot, on a dolly. And suddenly it switches to handheld. And it's this really jarring thing because, especially for someone like me, I binged the entire series. So I watched almost 10 hours straight over 2 days. So to see that moment where it gets handheld, and the moment a nurse finally rushes over and catches his breath, it gets put back on the
Back
track.
on the track.
And it's like, it gave me goosebumps the first time I watched it because it's such like
Whoa.
the long con, right?
Yeah.
You got 9 episodes of never use a handheld shot to suddenly let's go down this hallway and shake it up a bit. And then as soon as his breath catches, it's back to the tracking shot and back
And
to normal.
The beauty of that is
normalcy.
kind of knowing the mastery that it takes to do that. Because to me, I always kind of look at art as like being a Jedi. You have to know the way so you can break the rules properly. If you're
Yeah.
just breaking the
Right.
rules like just unbeknownst, then you're just being an asshole.
Well, because it would be without purpose at that point.
Yeah.
Like you gotta understand.
Like breaking the
What you're
180
doing.
degree rule perfectly is a feat to do. But if you're just doing it haphazardly, then it makes no sense.
Yeah.
Right.
It's the same thing.
Like-
he said he only uses close-ups to tell you information.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's a waste of a close-up.
Wow.
That's a good point.
Next person.
So yeah.
Wanna go
Anyway,
next?
David Fincher, shout out.
I can go.
Oh,
Do
like,
it.
can I pull the
Do
curtain
it.
back a little bit?
Sure.
I'm garbage, and the
What?
two directors that I picked are part of other people's directors that they want to talk about. So I'm going to be adding on to their conversation.
Well,
No, that's fine.
and-
I mean, I'm sure a lot of us might have some.
That's why I'm kind of like
I don't
just,
like
well,
any of your guys' directors, so I won't add to anything. I'm just kidding.
I was like, just
See you next
Josh.
week, Corey.
Well,
I mean,
Corey and Josh have two unique ones compared to what us three will have.
Got it. Yeah.
So you want?
Josh.
so-
or Ali.
Ali.
So I know the one you're speaking of, so I'll leave it for you.
Well, okay, go ahead. Okay, and then we'll add together.
Oh, yeah,
I'm-
yeah.
Yeah, and then and I'll add it
Yeah,
together.
there you go.
You're such a good lover.
I'm gonna
Oh my
go
goodness,
with.
so giving.
I was gonna originally, and I have to shout him out. My homeboy Kevin Smith.
the
we
homie,
we go way back.
Smitty.
Okay.
You'll have your own episode. I'll make sure of it. But for today,
don't hit me again.
I want to talk about J.J. Abrams.
Okay.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah, out of left field, right?
You did not put that in the list.
I did not put that. I changed my mind while I was up north.
Fucking, we don't write these show notes for any reason.
Fast and loose, baby.
Go on.
So
Like
Light
he
and
is.
loose. Keep it
so,
light
yeah,
and loose.
light and loose. So J.J. Abrams, man, like him as a director, right? Directors are us. He does a lot of other stuff, but he's specifically directed. If you are not aware of some of the films that he might have directed,
Might have. It's still out.
might
have.
have.
still out.
The
The
verdict's
verdict's
still
still
out.
out.
Lost for one.
I want to give
Mission
it to
Impossible
you.
3. Oh, you want to do chronologically?
We're gonna go with film
Okay.
directing.
Okay.
Mission Impossible 3. which is actually my favorite one. Star Trek 2009, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. Super 8, all right.
Stranger Things.
I love Super 8.
So,
beta.
Super 8's great.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it. Star Trek Into Darkness, Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens. And
And soon to be
he will
Rise
be
of the
doing
Skywalker.
Rise of the Skywalker, Episode 9. So many reasons I like his directorial work. One, you kind of get his sense from Lost, right? I think that was kind of like the big thing with him. Alias, of course, Felicity. I still really want to go back and watch through Alias because it looks awesome. But we kind of got a sense for his work and kind of like what his style is inside of Lost. But then moving to Mission Impossible 3, there was something about the way things look for him. Use the anamorphic lens, I think, for most of his work. He does a lot of stuff in camera as far as like lighting effects, things like that.
That lens flare, baby.
Lens flares, of course, made popular by Star Trek. But even like there's some kind of like saturation or vividness, clarity to the way he like shoots that I really appreciate. And it's fun to watch his work. Like when you think of a great example is in Star Trek Into Darkness, the opening scene on that other planet they were trying to save, spoilers, whatever. It's the opening scene. But it's what is it? I think it was like yellow people running through a red field
Yeah.
And
then
yellow shirts or yellow skinned?
and
Clothed.
skinned,
Skinned.
clothed.
My
Right.
people. Okay.
And then they
up,
dive
shut up.
into the clearest crystal-looking water
Yeah.
that's like teal. So
Yeah.
there's these contrasts of colors, and it doesn't look
gorgeous.
out of place. It doesn't look weird. It looks kind of fun and kind of weirdly real. And I don't know.
The interesting thing, it's contrasted with a lot of Mission Impossible 3. Mission Impossible 3 is highly muted. It's very gritty, and
There's parts that you see, like when there's the right kind of lighting and stuff like that,
I'm
where
kinda-
you see some like reds come through very sharply. So he knows how to use colors, I think.
well, I think he knows how to
To
use it in the
effect.
world.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
And that's what I'm saying. It's contrasting because he kind of understands the world in that sense. Because like I'm just thinking about the bridge action sequence where like missiles are coming on the bridge. It's just like a gray movie. But that's how it is because it's a spy. It's almost the closest they've gotten to like a little espionage mixed with action because it's more of a personal story.
Right. And there's just like this charm to the way he shoots things and his camera movements work that are very kind of, I don't know, kind of like naturally, effortlessly epic.
Well, I would say
sometimes.
like he allows
Sweeping shots.
yeah, I
sweeping
was like, he lets the
shots that,
camera
like-
live not in the same way as Fincher does, but more aggressively. That you're
Right.
like this fairy and you're floating through the scene amongst the crew.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like a fun ride, and it really does, in many ways, remind me of like Steven Spielberg's work,
Yeah.
and it kind of
Spiritual
has that
successor in a sense.
right, and that's kind of like almost like self-admitted in a weird way.
What would you say your favorite J.J. Abrams film is?
J.J. Abrams?
My
J
favorite,
squared.
J.J. Abrams movie
Yeah.
Wow.
is,
Jabrins.
I mean, I would have to go with Star Trek.
Star Trek?
Yeah.
Into Darkness
Nice.
or
No, just Star Trek.
Very
2009.
first.
Yeah. That movie, I think it was either the same year. No, it was a year right after Iron Man, 2008. And I think those couple of years were like, for me, I think pivotal moments in cinema where like I feel like movies leveled up like that, and like CG just became believable, and
cinematic reawakening.
like the first reveal shot of the Enterprise in that movie is pretty breathtaking.
I think that was like their teaser was
Yeah.
just showing the side.
Well,
of
they
it.
show the side of it being built.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
then
remember
in the
that.
movie, the first time you see it is when it's revealed or whatever, and it's glorious. It looks super realistic. And I think a lot of the camera flares he does, he gets a lot of. How do you guys feel about the camera flares?
Can I do two things? Shout out
You
to my boy Tyler. Shout out to my girl Camille, who worked on all the Star Trek movies.
Shout
Awesome.
out. So they know J.J. Abrams.
Yeah.
So for context, he likes the camera flares, so he does it on purpose. So he has like
Oh,
lights that are
lens flare.
pointed into the.
What do we think of it?
Yeah, so just to build,
Oh.
just to give you the foundation, he takes lights and he points them into the camera.
Yeah.
He achieves them on purpose,
Yeah.
and then afterwards in post they add more if they need it.
So here's my 2 cents on it, is that he doesn't actually do it in a lot of other movies beyond Star Trek.
Well,
Right.
the only you know why he did it in Star Trek, right?
It makes sense in
But
Star
the
Trek
exact
aesthetically.
line.
No.
His exact line he said was, the reason I added more lights in Star Trek than any other film is because I wanted the future to be seen as like this paradise world where
Yeah.
you can't tell where lights are coming from. Like you can't tell a light source from the other.
Right.
And like light will just
And
come
it just
from
it's just
It
all the lights
fits.
were integrated into the set for real when they were shooting. And
Yeah.
they're like real lights that they're using.
would hit
and so
the
they're
camera in the
they're
right
gonna give
way.
you real lens flares.
I like so here's
Wow.
my thing. I joke about it a lot.
Yeah,
I
everybody
always
does.
joke.
I do
mean,
too.
It's easy,
doesn't?
but like
it's easy.
I think it fit wonderfully, and it's like one of those. It's a step. It's almost a step towards an auteur thing for those Star Trek films, where you're just like, that's JJ.
I think
for
it
sure.
just brings this sense of like atmosphere and dimension in to the scene, especially when it's on a close up. I know one of my favorite parts of Star Trek 2009 is just the beginning, just the opening sequence with Chris Hemsworth.
Yeah.
But then there's like this very specific moment where like he comes on the bridge
Papa
and it's
Kirk, baby.
and it's just like it's the original Kelvin. What is it, Commander or whatever?
Oh yeah.
He comes into the
yeah,
room. I forget the actor's name.
Oh, is that Bruce Greenwood?
Maybe.
I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
go on.
I think he might be Indian.
Okay, go on.
So it comes in and it's like the sun is really bright and it's like polarized the view screen, so you get all those cool special effects. And then he sits down and they get this close up and it just looks so crystal clear. So that to me, I was just like really, I'm always just amazed by the way like his stuff looks in camera. And of course, and like I feel like he's almost the perfect person to have done Star Wars Episode 7, just because like he like on a creative level, he brings the storytelling prowess. He brings his like the fun adventure visual style
Yeah.
to Star
Like you
Wars.
said,
That
Spielberg-
complemented it so
Spielberg's a
well,
little bit.
right? And I think that just fit Force Awakens so well, and I think that's why it did as well as it did. Of course, you
Yeah.
got the cameos and all that stuff, or Harrison Ford coming back, but
I will say, I think it is pretty cool that one guy has now directed both Star Trek's reboot and
Star
Wars'
Wars,
reboot. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Well, not reboots, but yeah,
Yeah.
because they both are still linear with the old stories.
He has breathed life into
but
two
yes,
franchises.
he has brought two Star franchises back.
exactly.
It's one guy.
Exactly. And there we won't get into Star Trek, maybe we'll save that for its own episode, but there's the whole controversy of like, if you're a Trekkie, you hate Star Trek, et cetera, et cetera. For me,
Star Wars.
I was never really and there's the Star Wars crowd as well, but like for Star Trek, I was never really a big Trekkie, so I wasn't offended by it. There's nothing for me to be offended to,
Yeah.
because I really only watched the
Well,
movies.
there's a difference between that and fans too, because like my wife's parents are Trekkies and they also love Star Wars. You can like both, y'all.
Yeah.
Just want to
Yeah.
say.
Well, that's
You can
meant
like both.
that's meant the specific like Star Trek that J.J. Abrams made.
Oh yeah.
Would make Trekkies upset because
Oh.
it's like a side dude
I've
or
heard
You
whatever.
can also like both.
I've heard that.
Right. So I'm just like, I don't care. I think it's a phenomenally put together movie
Yeah.
with great
You like it
characters,
entertaining.
great acting.
I
It's
liked it.
entertaining. The cast is phenomenal. If you think about the cast again, you probably haven't thought about the cast for a while.
You like the movie.
I like the movie.
I like the movie.
Dope. I like that.
Josh?
Yeah, I'll go. This is a very hard thing to narrow down. Like I
Tell me
really
about it.
actually do have like a handful of people, and I was told to put that down to 2.
It was easier
And I
for
might
me
not even-
because I know we're doing a part 2 of this. So I
Oh.
have 4 more that I
I've
want to
got a
talk
few.
about. So,
So I have to pick one because it
2.
sounds like we're okay.
Wait, oh, you
Everybody's
only
on
did
the
go
one.
around.
Well,
yeah,
didn't
we're
you?
going. I only did
Oh,
one.
oh,
We're just
oh,
doing
I
it.
Oh,
see.
okay, okay.
We're,
okay.
we're doing it.
All right. Well, my first one that I will talk about is Edgar Wright. When I was putting together this list, I was thinking about direct like movies that I like, and I can kind of put a pinpoint almost on like, oh, it's
It's him.
well, shoot, it's him.
It's her.
And Edgar Wright movies, they really just. I have this dream, and I'm going to put it out there. I would really like to create a film that is of the style of Edgar Wright. What I like about Edgar Wright, and I've talked about this in the past, of how some people use sound design and music together. Edgar Wright does that too, but he also does it visually. What I really love about Edgar Wright, and it makes me squeal every time I see it, is a transition from one scene to the next, and it almost you don't see it. Yeah, and it's
Oh,
like
now they're there.
it's like a pan of a character, but then the character's still there, but now it's the next scene.
Oh, a mask.
Yeah, and it makes me squeal because I'm just like, I love it. And like movies like you got Spaced. If you go back old days, Spaced is a TV series
yeah.
that didn't have a lot of run, but I found Spaced way later, and it's one of my favorite television shows, and it really is in the vein. If you like Edgar Wright, watch that. It's fucking fantastic. But you've also got like Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, recents like Scott Pilgrim versus the
The
World.
Cornetto trilogy.
Love
Yeah.
Scott Pilgrim. So
Baby
underrated.
Driver is one of his recent ones.
It's an editor's wet dream, Baby Driver.
Yeah.
By the way, just want
Oh.
to throw
I
that
mean,
out there.
it's the way that,
It's all
like I
edited
said,
to music.
yeah,
That's why.
the transitions. I love the way that text is played with on-screen text.
Mm-hmm.
I love just like the
Like the
like
thing,
things happening so quickly. I realize I'm a child because I like things to just be like.
it's your
It's
lizard.
fun.
It's your
Well,
lizard. Your lizard brain.
It's
Yeah.
not
It's the
even
language.
that. Oh, go ahead. I'll go into
Well,
that.
I was gonna
after.
say, well, I mean, the thing what he does in all intents and purposes, what you're saying, like having 1,000 cuts a second, having text on screen, editing music, all sounds very rudimentary. But
Yeah.
again, it's the way you use it and the mastery of how he does it, like allows him to play with how well the audience is engaging with the story that he wants to tell and when he wants to tell it.
Yeah.
He does, like most times if you see like a normal scene where a character is driving from one city to another city, most directors who are garbage and lazy will have a second unit fucking just be like, well, now you're gonna have to watch this shit and you'll have to wait till they get to that scene. He will use it and make meaning out of it. And I think Corey has an example that he wants to share.
Well, no, it's not that I want to have an example. It's the same thing. I was going to mention it's another Every Frame a Painting. I've mentioned that twice now. Great video series. But he talks about how, like Tom said, if you want to, in a movie, what you would typically see is someone driving across screen from left to right. You'd see a city sign, whatever. But then there's the Hot Fuzz version where he moves from the city out, right? And suddenly it's, let's get in the car, let's watch the cell phone service, let's look at the bright neon taxi of the city, and then we're
Yeah.
going to get on a subway, wake
Every
up.
shot is telling you like
Then
a
we're
different
the dim
thing.
old taxi sign. You're in some rural area. A shot of the cell phone where it's no service. Like it's little things, and it takes 7 seconds for you to see this.
He's showing you instead of telling you.
Do you know how much room you now have for storytelling because you've cut a minute and a half
But
out of your travel scene?
The thing
Right,
that
yeah.
in those 7 seconds he created meaning.
Yeah.
Where some people in 7 seconds just show like, boom, explosion, air, fighter planes,
Walking
and
away
then
dramatically.
fucking lens flare.
Yeah.
And you're like, in those 7 seconds, you didn't tell me one thing. In this person, they know they could give me meaning in 7 seconds.
He
Yeah.
understands the show don't tell.
Well, it's like he's appealing to the lizard brain, where you're like, I am actively at a primordial level responding to it, and then I'm also responding to your frontal lobe at the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's
Because
fucking amazing.
there's key things that your brain intakes and can put together, right? You don't need to show someone getting in a car, shutting the door, putting their seatbelt on, turning the car on, putting it in reverse, seeing the light, seeing it pull out and go. All he needs to show you is a door shuts, the ignition turns, it kicks it into reverse, and you see a tire peel out, and suddenly you can be at the next. Your brain fills in the rest of that.
Yeah.
Right.
And if you're watching 24, Jack Bauer teleports.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing too is I know that he's not like the only writer on his projects, but they're just funny. The kind of humor, like sardonic, sarcastic, it's British humor oftentimes that just like lights
Simon
my
Pegg.
fire. Yeah, Simon Pegg. Like
Nick Frost.
Yes.
it's always
I love that.
British humor is probably always going to be on par with my sense of humor because I grew up on Monty Python. It's silly, it's a little kooky, and it
Yeah,
just
I would say it is British, but they also definitely have.
American chops.
Yeah.
I would say
Yeah.
Scott Pilgrim's really fucking good, and also I did get a Mike Myers mask in Baby Driver. It was
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah.
well, and here's the other thing too is that I think that you can tell this from his films is that he is a fan himself.
Yeah.
Like there are references to other things that he's a fan of, and I'm just like, I see you,
Yep.
that camera,
Yeah, that's the one.
I see you.
You know what's funny? When he was making Shaun of the Dead with Simon Pegg, they were writing it, and then 28 Days Later came out. And then after that, I think another zombie. And then Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead came out. And then they were like, stay the course. Stay the
Yeah.
course, because ours will be different.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean, Shaun
but
of the Dead.
I think that was the perfect time for those two to come out 1st, and then a comedy. Be like, oh, so I've seen the real ones. This
Right.
is a nice.
No,
change
so
of
what they did,
pace.
they took all the rules.
Yeah.
They took all the rules, like these ones don't run or blah blah. This happens.
Yeah.
Like, and they
Yep.
and they say they never say zombie in the thing or Zed,
No, they say
whatever.
Zed.
The Z word. Yeah.
Don't say the Z word.
Yeah.
Another thing I really like about Edgar Wright is his own jokes, and maybe this is another unique director trait, because I believe he is an auteur 100%. Is he has jokes from his previous film come back in other films.
Yes.
Which is really nice. He has a big. If you ever look up Edgar Wright fence joke or shortcut joke,
Yes.
in 3 of the Cornetto trilogy, every time there's always, "What, you never heard about a shortcut?" and someone jumping over fences in some way. And I love that kind because it's funny either way, even if you don't know the joke. But if
Yeah.
you are in on the joke, you're getting 1,000% more out
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So shout out.
Yeah. I'm also like adding on to the humor is there's also visual jokes that are happening on the screen. And I liken it back to like
Visual comedy, baby.
I liken it back to the old like Naked Gun, Mel Brooks kind of movies where the comedy isn't just in what they're saying. You have to look at the frame. There's
Yeah.
something silly or there's something
Who are the
there.
guys who did that? Airplane.
I forget.
They all did that same thing. They introduced that style of comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like you have like Airplane, for instance, there's a scene, but if you look behind, there's a scene going on behind there that's really kind of almost the comedy of the scene that you're going, that's silly.
Well,
But that happens. It happens sometimes with Edgar Wright's films where it's like there's something else going on that you got to catch it.
in Scott Pilgrim's my favorite Edgar Wright film.
I'm gonna hop right
Yeah.
on that.
I
I
was gonna
love
say,
that.
when Knives comes and visited Scott, and then like they've broken up or he doesn't want to break up with her, and then it's
It's a play with the narrator and the text and everything. like,
the other Macaulay Culkin,
Yeah,
the other
Kieran.
one,
Kieran
Culkin, opens the door and then Scott's there and he closes the door right behind him a little bit more and they're like, "Where's Scott?" Nowhere. He jumps out of the window
Yeah.
behind him.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's so good. I'm like, God damn. And she's like, doesn't know. She's like, "I'm sorry," and like other things, but like they do a scene where it's like there's tension between characters, so they're like zoom, and then it'll go to other characters who know the other drama. So zoom one, and then the gay roommate looks at the boyfriend, and like looks at him, and then there's awkwardness. Like it's such a good frenetic movement.
Another style of visual comedy he uses is there's a scene in Shaun of the Dead where Shaun comes in drunk and he writes something on the whiteboard and it's a wide shot and it's nighttime and they're on a soundstage is how they pull this off, but they have windows in the kitchen and it's all dark and he passes out and a second later they use a practical where they turn all the lights on. They have the lights to turn on to look like it's morning time.
Yeah.
And he immediately wakes up and it's the same one shot. It doesn't
Yeah.
move at all. And it's really well done.
They do that in Scott Pilgrim when Aubrey Plaza is getting intense. They will dim all the lights.
it's just
around
her
her,
face. Yeah.
so she just comes
Whoa.
Yeah.
It's Scott Pilgrim is my favorite.
was gonna
Like
say,
I watched
is that your
I watched
favorite?
it. I watched it recently, and I love I'm just gonna say it. I love every aspect of that film.
Yeah.
It's the way that the text is used, the way that the narrator is used. It's the way like
Chris Evans is used.
Chris
in. It's
Evans
the
is
most
used.
Edgar Wright film. I
visual.
think.
Yeah,
It's
it is. It's visually pleasing.
The music is amazing.
It strikes my fancy.
We
it's
have sex
just,
bomb.
Yeah,
Ah,
it's
bombs.
just
what I said.
everything
Ah, bombs.
about it.
What'd I say?
You said bombs.
I said
But some people
bombs.
call them bombs. Anyway, bombs.
Caitlin.
Anyway.
I'm gonna start with the one that Tom's gonna hop on of Miyazaki.
I've been hopping on everybody's.
I know it's fine. And when choosing directors, I actually had both a hard and an easy time. I just thought of what directors do I know of, because I don't know of many.
So when I lightweight thought of doing Miyazaki, I'm like, God damn it, Caitlin's probably gonna do it.
Mhm, yes, correct. And really, I didn't really know anything about directors for the longest time.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Tom.
'Cause I've helped
It's
you with
all to do with you.
She's like, I haven't
Every
learned
time.
shit from Tom.
Not at all. No, what I thought about was who had the most impact on me from films that I've seen and whose name came up every time. And the two people, well, I guess we're only saying one at a time, but Miyazaki was so interesting.
Who's Miyazaki?
Say the full name. You almost did it.
I almost did it. Well, I want
What?
you to say. That's why.
Hayao.
I just call it
I-
Hayao.
Hey, y'all.
Wow.
Hayao Miyazaki.
Miyazaki. Yeah, I struggle with saying his first name, which is why I'm like, Miyazaki.
He did
Don't
films
make me
such
say the first
as.
one. He did films such as Howl's Moving Castle, Spirited Away, My Neighbor Totoro, Princess Mononoke, all the Ghibli films. Say the one. Say it.
Kiki's Delivery Service.
I actually haven't seen that yet.
It's my favorite. We're going.
So there's so much intentional choices that are in there that it like hit me in the face. I had never been so intrigued by so many purposeful decisions. I actually bought a book on Miyazaki it's just a compilation of all the interviews with Miyazaki, and he's a very interesting person.
He
told
I'll-
his son he's
I'll-
a terrible filmmaker.
He didn't say that. He said, "I think my son made an honest film. Now that he's made one, I think he should stop."
Yeah, his opinions are harsh.
I saw I saw a documentary where it was just him and his son was doing his first film.
Right.
No, it was after his first film, because he had commercial success but not critical success. And it was the next film, and it was supposed to be Hayao wrote the screenplay for it, and then Goro
Directed
Miyazaki was going to direct it. And part of directing in Studio Ghibli is that the director does the storyboards.
Right.
And those are sometimes 80,000 storyboards.
There's a lot.
Or like hundreds of thousands of storyboards. Anyways, but like he would talk to everyone in the studio except his son for the entire production.
Oh,
It would like their relationship is intense.
messed up.
The producer, I forget his name, but he's like the big middleman between everybody and
Wow.
Miyazaki.
I mean, it doesn't surprise me because based on what I read, like it makes sense that every scene can be purposeful. Also,
yeah.
because he takes so much ownership over everything. He's like, you want something done right, you're gonna do it yourself, and he does.
He does. He's got the shit to back it up with.
He does. But it's still
Like that's
he's still a bit of a character.
He's intense.
I'm being real Midwest nice about this right now.
I was gonna say, wow.
The thing is, like, we're trying to respect his craft, right?
Right.
Like, but the thing is, like, in normal society, it's asshole moves. It's
Yeah.
really
also a different culture.
well, yeah,
Very
and,
different culture.
Like, have you seen Jiro Dreams of Sushi?
Yeah.
And like the whole thing with the dad being like the top sushi chef and Hayao being like this top animator, like everyone in the world already has this ideology that the son is not going to be even half as good.
Right.
Like that's just something that the Japanese culture buys into. In America, we don't have that ideology.
No.
But then that's a kind of respect and understanding that gives to higher praise and understanding of like the engagement that we should have with media. But yeah, like it was like he was there during the film that Goro was directing, and he was looking at one of the background artists, and on the background was like drew this like open field, and then he put the truck over it because they do multi-layer animation, and he said that truck's too big, that truck's gonna take up the entire frame, and then you just see the animator just slowly put it away, and it's just like such like a intense moment because you're kind of like, this is how they work and operate, right? And then he'll like look at storyboards and he'll like, it's like this person looked like they just saw a dead person. And it's like, this person should be full of life. Like, why are these things not full of life? Why is it not that understanding? But it's kind of, again, that's those signatures.
Yeah.
Right.
So
and
yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say that like I remember it was like these guys were really excited to show Miyazaki these like what they had made in graphics, and it was like a zombie that was like dragging itself across the floor, and like the movements were really lifelike. Miyazaki was pissed.
Whoa.
More than a little. He was like, I have a friend who is disabled and can never walk again. How dare you show this to me? He went off on them. Like you could tell everyone was like wide-eyed staring at the floor. And that's like, it's one of those things where there's so much about Miyazaki that I truly, truly love. But
It's a situation where you have to separate the art from the artist.
well, no, there are just some things that he will never be capable of making too. Like because he hates that kind of a thing,
Aesthetic.
we're never going to see that kind of aesthetic from Miyazaki.
yeah.
Not that I'm upset about that at all.
And
But
go
ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, bringing it back to him as a director, what specifically what draws you to him as your favorite director?
The fantastical realities that he creates. I gave myself little like 2 lines or couple lines for each director that I really like. And fantastical reality was the first thing that came to mind because everything is set in a very real world. Like even though it has all the like whimsy of,
Shintoism.
Shintoism, but it's all very grounded. Like he does a very good job of taking all of these concepts that would never be real in this world,
Yeah.
but makes them feel like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Like a radish,
there
like
it
a
is.
radish person.
Yeah, like the radish spirit.
He takes a little spark and can make it into an entire story.
Like Calcifer.
Yeah.
I think it goes to mention that
It
like
was too easy. You set it up. I had to spike it.
he grew up after the 40s, so after the devastation of Japan and all that stuff of war. I honestly kind of would say like this: he's a combination of Walt Disney and Tolkien.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's
Yeah.
really
Wow.
good.
And what he does, he tries to do is try to make really honest stories. And he actually, shout out to Nerd on Nation patron, Lovehammer Ian. He really kind of slapped me across the face and said, the reason why I will always choose a Ghibli film over a Disney film is because Ghibli isn't infatuated with lies.
Right.
And
Well, and I felt kind of bad, but like the more we're talking, like I felt kind of bad to point out that there's some problems with Miyazaki, but at the same time, I feel like that's almost more appropriate.
it's kind of like more, to me, it's more charming because you know that there's flaws in his human,
Right.
and that he is a one human being, and then he has such a strict rule for what he does, but like
It may inform some of his
Well,
decisions.
exactly.
He's
so-
also very open about those things.
So he's
Right.
not like he tries to hide them.
No. Nothing is hidden, no.
He's seen the devastation of the world and devastation of people, and he understands like the wanting and need to come back to spiritualism and the rest of the world as a whole, and not be so stuck with the self. Being so stuck with like, what do I want in my dreams and shit like that, but like understanding like your water drop affects the ocean, and understanding that there is an ocean to begin with. I really kind of taking a liking because the reason why he started at Toei Animation Studio, then went to Nippon, like he was not content with the style of corporate animation that they wanted.
Wow.
He was not content with a bunch of people who were like, let's throw this fantasy story that Hans Christian Andersen did and make a new version of it.
Right.
He was like, I want to tell an original story that can speak to the Japanese people about their lives and about like a girl growing up in a world where she has to use her creative skills to find herself. And she loses those skills because the rest of the world doesn't appreciate who she is.
You're talking about Kiki?
Kiki.
Fucking
Okay,
Kiki.
there we
It's
go.
the millennial goddamn story. But also with Spirited Away, where it's like, it's the story of like a girl who has no respect and understanding for the spirits and finding that respect. But then at the end of the day, she doesn't have those memories, but instead she'll still have that respect of family and love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like those kind of things where it's like, it's also to your point where it's like, he is a little flawed where like sometimes it gets personal because like right after that he did Howl's Moving Castle, and it's kind of like after he got Spirited Away, like he got the fucking Academy Award, right? And it was
Right.
world renowned. It was the #1 film in Japan for grossing all Japan until like Your Name, and then another one came out. So it's number 3. But then he did Howl's Moving Castle, and it's about a girl who gets cursed to become an old woman. And it's kind of like he was kind of having that ideology. It's like, I will never be able as good as who I was at the yesteryear. And even one of his later films, like Ghibli is named after like the wind current of change and stuff like that. He did one of his last films, I think, I forget what the name of it is, but it's pretty much about flying. A lot of his themes are around flying and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And like his son actually is highly inspired by him in a way where like Up on Poppy Hill is his last film that he did under him. And that was the one that Hayao wrote, but it was the clash of the old versus the new. And it was like such this poetic thing that was going on.
Yeah.
And then I think Hayao has like one final film that he says, but the joke in the modern world right now, it's like, this fool going to make films when he's dead.
Yeah.
Because
Probably.
he's that curmudgeonly holding on to it.
So Kiki's is your favorite
For sure.
My favorite,
Miyazaki film.
probably Spirited Away. Just because from impact standpoint, everything is like how the personal impact.
Oh, 100%. I
And,
mean, I think that's why we all have our
Right.
favorites, right? It's got to be some sort of
Um,
personal impact on you.
Yeah, Spirited Away for sure.
Yeah,
That's like
Dope.
so.
that's my favorite too.
Yeah, it's
No
really,
big deal.
it's really
But I
good.
haven't seen
It's
Kiki's
really
yet,
good.
so
Just a real cool
Movie
tidbit.
viewing.
Just a real cool tidbit about him. His first feature film that wasn't his Studio Ghibli was Wind Rises. Not Wind Rises. It was Nausicaa.
Nausicaa, Valley of the Wind.
And it's based off a manga he was writing at the same
Side
time.
note, I actually just went to a lecture on this guy. I think his name was Kazuhiko. I can't remember his last name.
Matsurai.
No, not at all. Not at all. But he actually made the plane from Nausicaa.
Oh shit.
Like
That's what's
for
up.
real.
oh wow,
He made it. It took him 16
like a
years.
full size plane.
Full size.
Jesus, I don't even know what it looks
can
like. But
fly
like,
it plane.
oh, like
Wow.
a function.
Oh,
Like
wow.
you didn't just build a prop.
No.
Right.
He built the whole thing,
Oh, that's dope.
like for real. And I kind of freaked out. It's actually the plane is here in California right now.
we should go see it.
Yes,
this is
so
the
you
last
should look
thing
that
I'll
up
ask
because it's amazing.
about Miyazaki, because I've gotten your opinion. I know you guys are sharing this director. What about his films drew you to them?
For me, I feel like there's we talked about it on our Spirited Away episode. Check that out. He has a deliberateness with pace, a deliberateness with you
Like letting things breathe.
letting things breathe, but also understanding like music, which he isn't a fan of using music actually a lot of the times in his films, but he understands.
Music in there, so
But he understands
good, though.
when he needs to use it. But when he uses it, he lets it play. And so understanding like, when a character looks up at the wind and looks up at the sky and music plays, they're not just looking for no reason. They're not daydreaming, but it's like they're not going to come up and say like, I wish I wasn't, my dad was mad at me, or I wish I wasn't enslaved as
I
a
like
princess.
that. I hope they said, I wish I wasn't my dad mad at me.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like that shit. It was very much like
Just like popping up and going, I'm not wearing a hockey pants.
Oh, no.
in a director's episode.
How?
Very good.
Wow.
Very
I think
appropriate.
the thing I really like about it is like all of his stories don't surround around a princess, and they're not about loving a prince, and they're very much like individualistic stories. Like I think the biggest difference out of all of them is probably Totoro. And that's like such like a fairy tale story. It was made at the same time as Grave of the Fireflies, which his producer ended up directing. And those were made at the same time.
Can't.
You okay?
Grave of the Fireflies is so upsetting.
So it's crazy, and they're starkly different. But Totoro is the reason it got so popular. Is the reason why Ghibli that's their Mickey
their
Mouse.
mascot,
That's
yeah.
their Mickey Mouse, right? That's their Bugs Bunny. But like the way that he does things with his story and his characters, they're all typically strong female lead characters that don't need any saving, and like they are pretty much going through their own personal journeys without. Again, it's not without them being saved. It's about them understanding the world around them at large.
Yeah.
Most of the time they save someone.
Yeah, and I think that's a little bit more. I think to me that's more poignant. And I think that would resonate with me, especially since it was an anime, or it like brought me into anime in that sense. And it made me so like nothing has to be high octane action. It doesn't have to be like save this or save the world or this person's gonna die. It's like no, if you don't do this, it's fine. You'll live on and move on another day. But the entire world behind you, the entire forest, those spirits will die.
Yeah.
And it's like you'll be fine in your car,
Yeah.
like once you leave this world. And it's like that's a crazy thing that I left with.
That's awesome.
Caitlin,
so good.
Yeah,
That's
a
it.
good
It's
answer.
so good.
you're gonna take that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just take it
yes.
right now.
I have an idea.
Okay.
Only because I know that Tom, I
And
know that
Ollie.
your list kind of mix. I think we should start now. You go to your next
Yeah.
person,
And then I'm
and
done.
then whoever can add. He mixes with
Yeah,
you.
he shares with me.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Why
We
don't we
share
do that and
together.
then kind of move?
Yes.
So my boy Christopher Nolan,
Yeah,
Chris
Would you
Nolan.
say
you say
that's
it
Such a
one more
strong
time?
reaction.
Go ahead.
What-
I was
Well-
going to say, would you consider him one of, being someone who wants to be a director, would you say he's your idol?
Oh, he's for sure. The thing is, it's tough. The thing I think about idols, though, short answer, yes. Long answer is when people say, "Oh, are you excited to be the next Bruce Lee?" to Jackie Chan.
Right.
What does Jackie Chan say?
No.
I never want to be the
I
next
want
Bruce
to be
Lee.
the first
I
Jackie
want to be the
Chan.
first Jackie Chan.
Yeah, but I just mean, is he someone you look to as a inspiration?
I look
guess?
up to him so much because the thing is like this.
Yeah.
So this is where my spiel starts. Christopher Nolan fucking started out. He never fucking went to film school. Everything he
What?
learned is self-taught.
Really?
Yep.
He
That's
learned-
the best news
He-
I've heard today.
He went to school to study English because he didn't have film school, and so everything he learned is in the camera. And what I mean by in camera was when, hey, we have some money, let's go some weekend, let's get some friends, let's go to a friend's house and shoot a film. Also, I don't have lights and I can't match color temperatures, so we're gonna shoot next to a window. But guess what? We're gonna shoot in black and white. Because he couldn't do it, and so he didn't have any understanding of it. So he literally learned all in the scope of a.
He learned by
viewfinder.
doing,
I learned by
which
doing.
is really cool.
Hell yeah.
And
I was so excited
the
about this.
thing about that, so he did like some short films. He went to Cannes and all that stuff, but he wasn't getting any praise. He like fucking submitted, and through the dawn of people like Kevin Smith and other indie filmmakers who self-funded their own shit, he decided to make Following. And after Following, then he got some critical acclaim at like Venice and other film festivals, and then he finally got Memento. Then he got to Insomnia. Then he got to Batman Begins. Then Prestige. Then Dark Knight. Then Inception. Then Dark Knight Rises. Then Interstellar. Then finally Dunkirk. But with that being said, so he's done like 11 films so far. Fuck you, Tarantino, and your 9 film bullshit. But the thing about him I love, so trademarks about him again. So he usually tries to run with a tight-knit group. Nathan Crowley, Wally Pfister, Jonathan Nolan, all being part of his like crew that he usually works with. He has a big knack for getting like high-list celebrities after like big fame points. So like after Memento, like when he got Memento, it was right after the Matrix series, and Carrie-Anne Moss is in there.
Yeah.
And it was like huge, and that pretty much helped sell the movie. And then since Carrie-Anne Moss is in there, my boy Cypher is in that shit. But then later on, after that, got Al Pacino, late Robin Williams, and Hilary Swank. All 3 Academy Award nominees and winners.
Yeah.
Like in his second feature film from a studio, from Warner Bros. And they were like, do it. And in Insomnia, he didn't use any storyboards. He didn't do any pre-production
didn't
meetings.
know
He
that.
just shot. And I was like, you know what? And so I was telling Corey on the way here, I was like, I inherently did not know that I've been like kind of following in his footsteps, not because like I tried to. And I know he did it for a purposeful reason, but like just because I'm poor.
Oh,
And like I would love to shoot in daytime. Most of the time when we shoot storyboard shit, the ones that I full on direct and no one else helps direct are all night stuff, and I hate it because it's like I gotta figure out how I'm gonna like this bullshit.
It's
Or
okay, because then I have to figure out how to color it, so I'm with you.
but then the one film that I got the most praise for, Bags and Buses, is all shot during the day and it looks fucking pretty.
yeah, because light.
Because light.
You can turn your ISO
because
down.
light.
You're like, oh, there's no grain.
Because
What is
Nolan typically likes to use naturalistic color, and so do I. Because I hate the ideology of not saturation, but like fake. I don't like it when like everything's super lit. Like I work at a job and they're like, "Why is it so dark?" I was like, "What's wrong with darkness? What's wrong with shadows? What's wrong with there being
Ali,
like shadows
did
in
you
the
just make
eyes?
that a thing? You just made
What's
it a
wrong
thing.
with darkness?
Yeah.
What's wrong with darkness?
Shout out to the night.
There's not
Shout out
Exactly.
to the night.
But like, so he likes using naturalistic
Charlie
colors,
Murphy.
natural stuff. The only things that he'll usually increase in vibrance are green and blues. But he, in terms of score, he doesn't like to use any music or license any of his songs. He likes to use very industrial, cerebral music. That's what it's been quote unquote noted as.
Industrial
Zimmer-ish.
cerebral.
Yeah,
Music.
well, before him, but yeah,
Some might say.
Some might say.
Somebody.
they kind of have a droning sound, but they're technically called industrial. But what he likes to do, and something I like to do, is high contrast, and so he likes to have the whites and the blacks. And so
Who
when
else do I know that likes to do high contrast on their movies? Oh, that's right. It's you, Tom.
Okay. But then the thing is that what he likes to do is have muted colors on his clothing. And so that typically his cast is white people.
Wow.
But so that
Surprise.
their faces contrast against their clothing so that you get better face expressions out of it. So I'm like, that's fucking smart. And I'm like, oh, I like that shit too. And then also like, he doesn't like to do a lot of blocking unless it's very necessary, at least when he was first starting out. And I guess I'm still starting out. And he likes the actors to organically find their places. And I'm like, yes, because the actors know the fucking scene. And then he'll try to strategically find where the camera lies. And that's
so
one thing I
good.
really love about that. And to me, if I could say there's a finite theme in his films, is the play of time, is how time works with with his characters, but also all his lead actors are tragic people who are mourning over the death of a wife or mourning over the death of somebody, and that they're all trying to create their own truth in some way. Memento, he's trying to
Or
create
find
tattoos.
purpose out of it. Yeah.
In Al Pacino, he's trying to rewrite literally that he killed his fucking partner.
In
the
Al Pacino.
Spoilers. In Insomnia. Insomnia, Al Pacino.
Well,
In the movie Al Pacino that everyone's been watching for the past 40 years.
The time thing you mentioned is spot on. Like
Yeah.
there's something to it, and it carries into
Dunkirk.
his choice for like for
Yeah,
score.
Dunkirk.
Like it's almost like the score is just reminding you that time's ticking, things are happening. And one of my favorite uses of him as a director is when he ties two scenes together with music. Like the music doesn't change, but it just changes to the next scene, because that's the next narrative thing you need, and it shares the same tone and the same like urgency as the previous scene. I eat that stuff up like that.
Yeah.
Him and his brother, they're like close in age, but then they were born born across the pond, but Christopher Nolan has a Welsh accent and his younger brother does not, because they were both raised in Chicago.
Right.
And so it's really funny where it's like one's
Usually, one's British, one's not. It's like, wait, no, they're both really. How the fuck does this happen? It's like one just chooses to use an accent, one doesn't.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting that
Interesting.
how that happens. But the thing about Nolan that I really admire is the way him and Jonathan Nolan want to do dialogue. And the thing about that I found is such a weird
Yeah.
crutch, but it's actually to me quite ingenious. Again, he's finding all these weird loopholes. He has such heady exposition because they're very intricate topics. And so he gets away with someone being like,
I'm here to tell you the exposition. Michael Caine. And he
Michael
says,
Caine.
first is the pledge, then is the turn, then is the prestige. Hey, here's the gravity problem in Interstellar. Hey,
Right.
this is the crime problem in Batman. I was like, holy shit. He gets that all out of the way because
Michael Caine is awesome at exposition.
but also it's just like
Either him or Morgan Freeman, and you got one of them. So.
the way that he chooses his films and which ones he wants to do, because most of the time he'll work with his brother, but sometimes like with Prestige, he was given the book and he's like, hey, do you want to make a movie out of this? And then he's like, yeah, sure. This is after Insomnia. And then they had to do Batman Begins.
And then later on, he's like, let's go back to this. And he realized, like, oh, there's a ton of movie you could do with this. There's different types of movies you could do with it. But he realized, like, this is how we're going to have to do the movie. So he's pretty methodical in the sense of, like, the way that the movie's been going to have to be told, I need to make sure that the momentum is going. But also when I'm doing exposition, it's not like typically you should never get lost. I've been in movie theaters with people who watch an Nolan film. They're like, oh, I didn't get it. And I'm like, I don't know if
paying
you're
attention.
stupid or not. Though.
No.
All right.
So Tom,
jeez.
we
It's
all
my- it
know
was my old roommate.
your favorite Nolan film is,
The Prestige.
and I'm gonna change the question to you because you guys are sharing this director.
Yeah.
Favorite Nolan film?
Jessica Chastain.
Our favorite Nolan film is The Dark Knight.
Yeah, I thought so.
And it is also my favorite movie of all time.
Oh wow, okay. So there you go.
I
I'm gonna ask why to both of you for those films. Why those films in particular? Choose who goes first.
Well, I do want to add real quick. I know we
Tom?
talked a little bit about auteur in the beginning of it, and some people, the purist film people that I went to school with and all that stuff,
would say like he's not an auteur in some senses, and some people would say like using the word auteur in such a flamboyant way is kind of like misleading and all that stuff. And I think most directors don't call themselves that unless they really want to be. And I think for us, people who are watching it, the laymen and all that stuff, or people who dabble in that stuff, it's interesting to kind of label that in that sense, because he's highly collaborative in that in those forms, that he works with a certain crew, and those certain crew like know how to establish a meaning that he wants out of it, because he doesn't use the same cinematographer anymore. He uses Hoyte van Hoyt.
I would say he's not an auteur,
Yeah.
but I still think he has signature things he does.
I would say he has such creative control. It's hard to argue both.
I would say the closest he got to exemplifying, if you were to make the argument from being out here, is Inception. I think.
yeah, Inception. Like to me, it would be like from Memento
Right.
to Inception to understand like those two. Like, oh, okay, and then
'Cause
also
that's-
to Interstellar in that sense.
Interstellar. Inception's the one that he's been like writing for, that he had been writing for a decade before.
Yeah.
Before
Wow.
he made it or whatever, and
Yeah.
so like I feel it's the most imbued with like him, like what the movie that he wanted to make, and it resonates, and you can see it, throughout the other movies
There's
too.
textbooks that talk about it.
Yeah.
But answering the question, what was it? Which one? Why is it their
Why?
favorite?
Why is it your favorite?
Go ahead, sir.
The dark,
Just to throw a curveball in there.
Batman. Tom.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Wow.
okay.
That is, all joking aside, that is a big part. But it's the way, of course, it's the reason why Tim Burton's Batman isn't my favorite, is because of the way Nolan handles it. So it's the way it's written, the way it's presented. So
Kind of grounding it.
grounded.
Yeah.
And Nolan is just, it's funny that there's a scene in The Dark Knight where the Joker is like, I don't like to use guns. I use knives. Or guns are too quick. You miss all the little emotions.
Yeah, you learn who people are
really.
before they die.
And I feel like he's so good in his work and his camera work to just catch those like little moments and those little emotions that the characters are.
Oh
like,
yeah, like the
expressing.
first time you see Joker's face when
First
he
time-
takes the
yeah.
mask off.
Yeah, and there's a second where like it cuts back to him, and he's making a face or whatever, and he leaves the shot, and it just every shot seems very deliberate, intentional. The pacing is on point. And because of that, and because of the kind of movie that you have with Dark Knight, it creates this like very like gripping suspense that just holds on to you and like does not let go for a good portion of this movie. And anytime you feel like you're safe from any kind of something, a dead body hits the window.
Yep. That will make. By the way, that part makes me
That
jump
every
every
time,
time.
Yeah, every time.
Oh.
Because
Even
you
though
don't
it's coming.
expect it.
Well, there's a lot of sound that comes along with it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then just like it's a hilarious movie. Like it's just funny. Like the people, the levity in it is
The dead
is
bodies hitting the
spot
windows.
on.
It's hilarious.
Hello,
Like-
that's out of proportion.
Yeah,
You think you just take my money? Yeah.
well, one of my favorites is
my
like
favorite line.
42 calibers, carbon fiber, made in China. If you want to kill a public servant, I recommend you buy American.
Yeah.
Like that's.
But I wasn't finished.
But I wasn't finished, right? Yeah.
A little fighting. I like that. They're gonna love me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that.
I hear you got a hell of a right cross.
Yeah.
Jim Gordon. See, that's the problem is with me because I've seen it so many times. I could like quote.
Quote the whole
That's
thing.
not a problem.
Tom,
For
Prestige.
Batman versus Wolverine. But
Fair.
versus Black Widow. And
Yeah.
also true.
And
Ollie is
also-
like extra fair.
Versus
Sure, fair.
Caesar the Ape.
Also, what's his name from Labyrinth?
Versus yeah.
All right.
But the Prestige.
David Bowie from Labyrinth. The Bulge.
Oh my God. Okay. All right. Prestige.
The Prestige for me is it speaks very personally to me. Just a story of two rivals, just two brothers, two rivals, magicians who are trying to create magic in the world, and in their plight and sought after like the best trick and try to outdo each other, they lose themselves in some way. One person tries to be the best, the other person is just trying to make ends meet so that they can have a family. But the person that has a family and love loses it in order to beat the other one. And then the other one loses all that because he's hiding a dark secret, because his trick that no one else can replicate destroys his entire life. And there's a line in there to me that sums up everything I think about the world, is that he's like, they're trying to figure out this other magician's trick. And then Christian Bale understands it immediately because he understands the ideology of personal self-sacrifice. And Hugh Jackman's character doesn't, because he just knows how to be a good showman. He'll understand magic at a certain extent, but then he won't understand the innate understanding of how to keep a secret to yourself and how to keep those lies from everyone. And Christian Bale's character, Alfred Borden, says, he knocks on the fucking brick wall and he says, that's what it takes to get out of all of this. And he's talking about the life. He's talking about like having to pinch for pennies and do shows for 2-bit hacks that he knows that he's more talented than. And like that's it. It's a lot of self-sacrifice. And they both have two different understandings of what sacrifice means. And it's the fighting of ideology. But guess what? There's not one fight scene in the movie. But instead, you get to see them work and maneuver around narratively how their lives get turned and twisted upside down.
Yeah.
And also, it plays with, again, non-linear storytelling. And that's Nolan's, like, strength.
Yeah.
His
Yeah.
fucking strength is non-linear storytelling. So you get enough a backstory from any character you want just to get you to the next scene.
And what else do you get? Exposition by Michael Caine.
Michael Caine.
One of my
This was created by a wizard.
one of my favorite moments in The Dark Knight is at the very end, where in this kind of concept, like I'd never thought about Batman this way, and it's when he says
Sexually?
our tagline kind of or whatever,
Yeah.
that he's the hero that Gotham
Needs.
deserves. He
Not,
deserves,
not the one he needs right now.
yeah, which means that he can be whatever Gotham needs him to be at that moment.
I
kill
those people.
Exactly. So he becomes like he takes
Dark Knight.
he becomes the villain
Yeah.
because he needs to preserve.
Gotham.
The order.
Harvey Dent. And yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
And that was just like I already loved Batman, but after that I was just like,
I'm in love with Batman.
What was that? What was that?
Can you do that one more time?
So you'd say you're in love with Batman.
And then what's
Slightly.
the last shot? Batman's ass.
Yeah.
Batman's ass, baby.
Was it?
You'll have to watch it,
Cyber
won't you?
protector.
I'm excited.
Rubber nips and rubber butts.
You have America's ass and you have Gotham's ass.
There you go.
Yeah.
But yeah, Nolan, there's just a lot of respect. And I think the great thing about him is that he's only shown confidence in what he's doing. And Warner Brothers really fucking like works with him. And they even work beside Paramount to get funding for his films, no matter what it is. And guess what? None of his films are over $200 million.
Oh man.
I wish I had
I'm sorry,
$1 million.
what?
None of his films have like, in terms of budget.
No. I'm still like
don't cost more than $200 million.
that
All of them,
amazes me.
all of them are like lower than $200 million. So I'm like,
Yeah.
he's able to do so much, and because he loves to do things practically, he recreated the engine.
No, because what that shows me that means that it's done right the first time. It's planned. It's
well
very
executed.
organized and it's well executed. So
Well,
that's
like-
what that.
There's a no spoilers. There's a helicopter shot where a helicopter crashes.
Okay, that's not good.
Yes, it's not
My
good.
favorite
exactly.
line.
Exactly. Rack him up, rack him up, rack him up.
It's not his favorite line.
It's not my favorite line, but I love that this the effect is the helicopter hits the ground. It like bumps the buildings,
Yeah.
hits the ground, explodes, and then tumbles away. You would think that the explosion and tumbling away is the CG, but like that's the practical thing, and then the helicopter falling is all CG, and then it switches between. So it's like the mix.
Yeah.
He's one of those people
Smart.
who knows how to
Does it
mix it
smart.
right.
Yeah.
Like the big thing, like so in Inception, he recreated Kubrick's Space Odyssey 2000, 2001 thing that allows you to gyro. So they attach the camera to the actual set and they rotate the set and
The
not
gimbal.
the person.
Yeah.
The gimbal. A lot of his like inspirations come from Kubrick, Michael Mann, as well as fucking criminy. I had all the names in my head.
If somebody out there has not, if you like Inception and you have not seen the behind the scenes of how they did the hallway fight
It's
scene,
pretty
Room
incredible.
Fights, yeah.
go look it up. It's freaking insane.
The anti-gravity fight scene.
And
Yeah.
and to discount that, like, oh yeah, of course you want to do it practical, but like the ideology just to do it that way, it goes back. And I actually want to talk about Insomnia because like that's really looked over a lot of the times. There's a good scene that Al Pacino
Yeah,
answers.
I've
the
only seen it once.
Al Pacino movie.
Yeah,
Al Pacino's
the movie.
answering. Answering the phone, and he has to give this like understanding that like something happened and something terrible is going on, and he puts the phone down. They use the widest anamorphic lens they could possibly find and put it right in his face because they know that it gives you a wider frame, and you should typically be like maybe 20 feet away from your subject. But then they threw it right in his face, knowing that they
Whoa.
would give him so much to create a claustrophobic look in a wide lens.
Yeah.
Huh.
Not a claustrophobic look with a telephoto lens, a claustrophobic with the wide lens. Because you're not supposed to do that with the wide lens. You're supposed to get
Because
like
it-
landscapes.
It alters the edges.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so he did that, and he like Al Pacino literally had to act with the camera as close to his as the mic is to my face.
Oh.
And so he had to like do that and just like understand like he couldn't move. And that's kind of things where it's like he's experimental in some ways, and they only paid off.
Yeah.
And that's a crazy thing. Like another staple you'll get is that he likes to create grand scope. So those transportation talk scenes we're talking about with Edgar Wright, he likes to do that with like a train going through the Colorado hills, like during like the 1800s, or like a plane getting disappearing into the Arctic winter.
Well,
And yeah.
Yeah, in Dark Knight Rises, the opening scene of that is they show the plane and just the angle that the plane is going in. It's like at the bottom of the frame, and then you have this giant like sky and mountains like scape behind the plane, and it just creates this insane sense of scope.
Yeah,
I
and
think really works.
it gives you that scale of like where the human lies amongst the world that he's trying to present to you.
Yeah.
So
Cool. I dig it.
So much Batman.
Yeah,
So much.
not enough as far as I'm concerned.
Never.
Well, we're getting.
But we'll talk about that soon.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Josh?
for sure.
Am I going to continue
Yeah.
the train? Yeah. Again, very hard to pick, but I had to call back to my favorite movie of all time is The Big Lebowski. And so the Coen brothers. So I get 2 and 1.
Wow.
No.
Should have narrowed down to 3 and he 2 and he did 3.
Well,
So-
you can say 2 equal
Yeah.
1
I'm
Yeah.
just
Coen
fucking with
Brothers
it.
are-
because they're only that good.
Very good.
The thing about the Coen brothers is, I'm
Just
going to be
kidding.
real honest. I did not used to like their movies.
Oh.
I just couldn't get into them whatsoever. And then The Big Lebowski came along where somebody was like, hey, have you seen this movie? And I was like, no. And I watched it. And
Your eyes were opened.
it in a sense, like I watched it and I was like, my friend at the time, my
Shout out to your friend at the time.
Buzz, who I've mentioned
Oh.
on the show.
Shout out to Buzz.
With the dope last name.
He was just like, you got to see this movie. And I watched it. And at first I was like, this is really interesting. But it was more of like a science experiment where I was like, I need to find out why my friend likes this movie so much. Like I can't pass something along and go, why did I not have the same reaction? So I watched it again and I watched it again and I watched it again. And I started to notice all the little nuances. It's the kind of the story that they tell. It's the what is actually happening. Usually a crime gone wrong. It's kooky dialogue. It's stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then I started to go back and watch other Coen brother movies. And when new Coen brother movies come out, I'm like, I see what you did there.
I get it now.
I get it now. And it really, I get it.
It
Yeah.
almost
I
sounds
saw
like
Fargo recently, a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, I totally get it now.
Yeah.
And I dig it a
They're
lot.
great.
it kind of sounds like you broke yourself down.
I,
Like I had to just force feed this until I understood
I kept
it.
eating tomatoes, even though I hate them, and now I like tomatoes.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
Um,
but you
It-
also,
I mean, in a sense, it was one of those things because Coen brothers I knew up to that point where they were held in high esteem, and I just didn't get it. I was just like,
was this
I
the
felt
Hollywood
they were
video
kind
days?
of they were kind of boring to me.
Oh, wow.
I mean,
And-
I think they mainly had a lot of cult
Classic esteem.
Yeah.
Not really like Hollywood big buzz esteem.
Yeah.
Until recently.
And like, I mean, you have
I mean,
movies
Fargo
like
was a big success.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you have movies like The Big Lebowski, Raising Arizona. I mean, that is just I love that movie.
Yeah.
Oh brother, where art thou?
That's where they got
Burn
me.
After Reading. Like there's
They
movies that
also-
are just so amazing now that
Country
I
for Old
have
Yeah.
No
and now that
Country.
I have like the understanding that I developed after getting so into The Big Lebowski that it really opened my eyes to all of their stuff. And it's really hard to I don't have as much of the film language as Tom may.
what do you mean the language?
I just really
Here's-
enjoy watching.
I'm going to throw something out there real quick. They
Yeah.
work with a guy named Roger Deakins.
Yeah, I wanted to.
Oh,
yeah.
go for it.
Well, I was just gonna say they essentially always
Roger
use
Deakins.
Roger Deakins. The thing,
They're
the other thing
director
about
of
Coen
photography.
Brothers movies is they're also beautiful, and he has been nominated for so many Oscars, and finally only won last year, 2018, for Blade Runner 2049.
2017, right?
I saw him.
Oh, you got
He
it
won
for 20,
for the
with
2017
okay, yeah,
film.
yeah.
the film came out. in 2017.
But it's just so amazing to just even if you just watch the films with the sound off and you're not really paying attention to the story, just paying attention to how it looks, it's beautiful.
With a
So, go ahead.
So the funny thing about Roger Deakins, he's not all about like I'm making every frame beautiful because
Yeah.
he said that in an interview. He's like, that's not my job.
Yeah.
My job is to tell the story. If he happens to do that, he happens.
So
to do that.
here's
and he
what,
knows how.
what
to
I
do
was
it.
going to say about Roger Deakins is he has a way. We've spoke a lot about dialogue in this episode, and he has a specific way that he and the Coens shoot dialogue. And what you would typically do in a film when you're shooting a two-person scene, let's say two people at a table talking, you'll put the camera over someone's shoulder. You'll get them to kind of dirty the frame, and you'll get the person who's speaking.
Dirty
you
the
know,
frame means be in it.
Yeah, sorry. You'll get their shoulder and maybe the back of their head in the frame, and you see the other person talking, and you get they're talking to that person. What the Coen Brothers and what Deacon especially likes to do is instead of a standard lens, he likes to switch it to a wide angle and put it in between them. So the
Oh,
other
put it
person
inside the dialogue.
he likes to live within the scene, within the conversation, as opposed to outside it, because
Interesting.
it gives you a different
perspective.
perspective
I-
and a different feel and a different understanding. You're more present in the conversation that way.
I took that from him for half a glass.
Did you?
I did it over your shoulder, over Dana's shoulder, and then at her last dialogue, I put it inside, so it's pointing only at her.
Yeah.
Because it allows, again, it's allowing you to pay attention now, child. This is the point where the story's going to turn now.
Yeah.
Because the thing about Coen Brothers, in terms of dialogue, a lot of the dialogue to me, in my sense, is very nonsensical. No one talks like that as human beings.
Yeah.
Bonafide.
What do you mean?
I want to just finish that point. The reason beyond that is if you pay attention, the reason I like to use a wide angle lens is their set dressing is very intentional. And the reason they use a wide angle is there are things in the background of whatever character is speaking, if they're in their office or whatever, that tell you exactly everything you need to know about who's talking, even if it's just a side character. There's, I forget exactly what, I think it's in Fargo, but everything behind and on William H. Macy's desk is always in frame the first time you see him, so that you know exactly what kind of person he is. And I think it's just a really unique take on it. And it really brings those dialogue scenes to life.
And you have actors within these movies that I think that you get to see a new side of them, a different side of them,
yeah.
and what you're used to.
Yeah, very much.
I mean, George Clooney seeing his humorous side. I mean, Brad Pitt, Jeff Bridges. I mean, I just fucking love Jeff
Well,
Bridges.
even Jeff Bridges from Big Lebowski to Jeff Bridges in True Grit.
Yes.
Which was
Fucking
also the Coen Brothers.
different.
Yeah. So it's very. I just really enjoy watching their movies now with a different understanding. I don't have the language for it, but I can just go, yeah, I dig this.
I would say I would give him fucking top credits making Haley Steinfeld a fucking star at 15 years old.
Yeah.
Getting her
Yeah.
Academy nominated for Best Leading
Yeah.
Actress as 15-year-old. I'm like,
Yeah,
that's so
100%.
good.
I mean, to answer the question that we're answering for this, my favorite, as I've said, is Big Lebowski, and I think it's
Jumped on, I was going to ask it.
it is man, what is it about the Big Lebowski? I think it's just interesting to watch this guy that isn't very smart. He's the main character of this film, and he's not very smart. He is kind of kooky in himself as a character, but all of the other characters around him are kookier.
Are equally not as smart.
Whoa, whoa,
Is
whoa.
there-
That's just like
That's just like your
Your
opinion,
opinion,
man.
man.
And I
But also
had to say
them
sorry.
White Russians, baby.
and my life works in Big Lebowski quotes. Like I feel like my brain, I'll hear somebody speak,
And Bill
I'm
and
like,
Ted quotes. To
and
be
Bill
fair.
and Ted, yeah, Strange things
Those
are
are the
afoot
two.
at the Circle K. But Big Lebowski, I'm like, that's just like your opinion, man. Or I like your style, dude. I like your style too, man.
Am I the
Got
only
that
one
whole
around here
cowboy
that follows
thing.
the fucking rules?
Calmer than you are.
Fuck up, Donnie.
You're out of
Or
your
when-
element. Donnie's my favorite one.
When something goes wrong, I'm like, fuck it, dude. Let's go bowling.
I'm a Dapper Dan man.
Yeah. Anyway,
Did you go bowling a lot?
I did.
Did you drink White Russians a lot?
I did.
Yeah.
When I was in
Wow.
my Lebowski
I don't know. No one
studies.
No one has obviously listening has been in his. There's a lot of rugs in your house.
Yeah.
They really do tie the room.
They really
together.
do tie the room. I wish we could have a rug in here, but it would just be.
We do have
We
a rug
don't.
in here.
But
It's
it
a
would tie
carpet.
the room
It's a
together.
carpet.
Oh yeah,
It's tiny.
Yeah, it's very tiny.
Yeah.
It pulls
But
the
it's-
room
yeah.
together.
It does.
Caitlin?
My other director is Tim Burton.
Yeah.
Yay.
And that was literally just like who came to my brain first. What?
I'm just singing. I'm doing Danny Elfman songs.
It sounded like Star Wars to me.
In
It probably was a little bit.
But the two words that I wrote down for him were dark whimsy, and I think
and price tags.
and price tags.
I'll tell you about it.
Oh, okay. No, it's anything that's Tim Burton. You look at the title and you're like, Tim Burton.
Someone's
Yeah.
gonna
There
have
it
scissor
is.
finger somewhere.
You hear the
There
music,
it is.
you hear the music, you see
There
the
it
title,
is.
and you're like, I'm in.
Yep.
Yep.
I'm buckled in for this.
Well, not all of them, but the ones that I wrote down that are my favorite are Edward Scissorhands, Big Fish, Corpse Bride, and Batman Returns. And that was only because,
you haven't seen
Diaper
Batman?
DeVito.
what?
Because you haven't seen Batman.
Diaper to be.
No, just
Yeah, solid.
just
Thank you.
everything was so specific.
Oh,
like
yeah.
I remember so much about that.
It's very has a lot of personality.
Yes, the personality is so big. Not to say that it's
I personally love those movies.
Yeah,
no, I love 'em.
It
The first
wasn't
two.
like the best film I'd ever seen, but like the personalities in it were so big that I'm like, ha, yay.
It's very Gotham-y in that
Goblins
sense,
and
which
ghouls.
I love.
Yes,
I love the
yes.
very Gothic ideology, the deco and all that stuff.
Oh,
the-
yeah.
the Gothic
Yeah, it's pulling that aesthetic from the animated series, which I really
No,
Or
appreciate.
the
other way
animated
around.
series pulled from that.
Yeah.
Or okay, then, there you go.
Wow.
Yeah.
Either
You're
way.
wrong.
I mean, Tim Burton
Came out
genius.
2 years afterwards.
He just went. I know.
yeah.
And I just did Google. Didn't you mean?
Sorry, I don't have an iPad in front of me.
Actually,
But go on about your Burton boy.
But yeah, no, and there's some of his stuff that I can't watch. Like it
Oh, yeah.
creeps me out.
Oh,
I like there's that line where you can
Frankenweenie.
Frankenweenie's fine.
Okay.
But no, there I forget what it's called. He
Nightmare
had
Before
Vincent
Christmas?
Price
Oh,
Edward
narrate
Scissorhands.
it. No. It was an animated thing, but it was like this
Corpse-
little kid is no.
Oh, Coraline.
No.
Oh.
No.
He didn't
It's
Coraline.
it's this side thing that wasn't a full movie that didn't come out in that way. You'll have to look it up.
Frankenweenie, the
Okay,
short
go
film.
on, tell about it.
I don't think so. It's like this little kid is killing all of his family members and everything. It got really, really dark.
Oh wait.
Yeah,
No.
yeah, yeah.
Yes. I know what
Wow.
you're talking about because
Yeah.
I went and saw like a special screening of Nightmare Before Christmas,
Vincent.
and they did that as a
Oh, it's just called Vincent. Of course
Yeah.
it is.
and they
and
they
it-
showed that before the film
Was
to
it
just kind of
terrifying?
like it's
It's really
no, I
messed
see what
up.
you're talking. Yeah.
It's very messed up. But
Uh,
I like his movies because they kind of dance on that line of like there's a lot of darkness that we're just kind of leaving out.
Get ready to feel uncomfortable.
But
Edward Scissorhands?
we're getting the fantastical side of dark, which
Yeah.
I really enjoy. Like it's the same thing of like Addams Family. Like they're
Yeah.
like, oh, it's terrible, horrible, awful. It's home.
There is a
Yeah.
parody video someone made of Tim Burton directing another film, and he's like, it's just like so many tropes. He's like, all right, we need spirals, we need black and white, and we need spirals.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
want
And
mountains
spider
that
webs.
curl. And Danny, what kind of song do you got? And Danny Elfman's on his phone. He goes, oh, la 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 la, bum 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 bum, diddly 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 diddly. He's like, perfect, we'll do it. If you haven't seen that parody, someone look it up. It's brilliant. But I
that's
love
what
Tim.
I mean.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. You can look at any just title, even Big Fish. You look at the title and you're like, I bet Tim Burton's involved.
Well, the funny thing is,
You
like,
just know.
he doesn't use all the same writers. The one big thing I really like, I'll take away from Big Fish, is that John August wrote that, who also wrote Frankenweenie, and who also recently did Aladdin that we just talked about. And it's a little different writing in all that sense. But the thing I was saying about price tag is that in Dark Shadows, there's a frame where you can see the price tag on a jacket. And I'm like, way to go, costumes.
Wow.
And then secondly, with your Batman comment, I would say there's a funny little story between Kevin Smith Ollie's Boy, because Kevin Smith was going to write a Tim Burton directed
yes.
Superman movie,
Oh,
and so was
glorious.
J.J. Abrams. J.J. Abrams was
Yep.
going to do Superman Flyby, but this is all before that point, after Christopher Reeves, unfortunately, had fallen off a horse and become paraplegic.
Oh.
And they were going to do a new story, and Nicolas Cage was going to star as Superman. Kevin Smith was going to write it, and Tim Burton said, no, thank you, and then did his own thing. And then Kevin Smith did a comic book, and at the very end, Jay and Bob, or the characters, find the world like destroyed, and there's the Statue of Liberty destroyed, and they're like, oh my God, what's happened? It's the end of the world. End credits, right? And later on, Tim Burton comes out with a movie called The Planet of the Apes. And then at the end of the movie, they find out they're on Earth, and there's a Statue of Liberty.
Well, there's a Washington Monument.
or Washington
The
Monument.
Statue of Liberty is from the original Planet of the
Yeah,
Apes.
yeah.
So yeah, something happened like that, and it was a Washington Monument, and then Kevin Smith's like, I think he stole that from my comic book, and then Tim Burton says, I would never read a comic book, and if you think I would read a comic book, it's garbage, blah blah blah, and then Kevin Smith said that explains Batman.
Yeah.
But just
Pat back.
just since you glazed over that
Ouch.
small detail, the Superman story with Kevin Smith was about mainly like one of the things was Tim Burton wanted Superman to fight a giant spider.
Well, not Tim Burton.
That's,
That's,
no,
a
wait.
whole nother
It was,
producer. It's a producer who did Wild Wild West afterwards, and they fought a
That's
giant
what it was.
spider.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, he was really stuck on that idea.
Apparently.
Back on
Tim
Tim
Burton.
Burton. I mean, another one of his films that's
Sleepy
I
Hollow?
really, really love it, but it's kind of hard to watch sometimes.
Sleepy
like
Hollow?
Sleepy Hollow.
Why is it hard?
I
It's
watched
one
it
of my
recently.
favorite
It's-
ones.
Ian Holm.
It's pretty
just
dark,
a
but it's pretty
little-
gruesome sometimes. That
yeah,
you're like,
it's a little dark.
it's kooky.
Tom's
I like
like,
it.
not enough.
Well,
need
because he
more.
makes his blood really bright candy red.
Yeah.
So it takes
Shout
a lot
out
out
to
for me.
Tarantino, but
Tarantino does. It's not quite.
but the
this
thing is,
kind of red.
Tarantino's also didn't throw like a black filter on your screen
Yeah.
too.
Right. It's like blue and yellow, just as bright as the blood.
I would say Sleepy Hollow is probably one of my favorite Tim Burton films for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
There's
It's a
something
good
about
one.
it
It's really
that I
good.
and Beetlejuice.
Beetlejuice is good.
Oh yeah,
Beetlejuice is real
Beetlejuice.
good.
Oh my God, that's so
And
good.
actually, there's a Beetlejuice 2 that's confirmed.
Oh really?
Beetlejuice goes to
Yep.
Hawaii.
As I
Same
was
brothers?
looking
Michael
at his
Keaton.
IMDb.
That was gonna be the original Beetlejuice too.
Yeah.
With
That's
Gina
what I said.
Davis?
Bill-
Yeah.
Beetlejuice goes to Hawaii.
Maybe.
Michael Keaton is not confirmed in it yet though.
Oh.
Weekend at Beetlejuice's.
yeah.
Uh,
Beetlejuice's.
I love that
Caitlin,
word.
so I know we're talking about it because we're doing director's list, but you for sure love Tim Burton, like him as a director. and
I
shit?
love the movies
loaded
that
question.
he's done.
Well, the reason I asked is because you weren't here when I talked about the story. We did Night Before Christmas,
Uh-huh.
and
He
then
didn't direct that.
it's Tim Burton's Presents. He produced it. Well, we were talking about it, and during like the anniversary event for Night Before Christmas, I was at Disneyland and I was in line and I saw all this huge commotion going on, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? And everyone's taking pictures at the Haunted Mansion, and then I see someone is inside the cage next to Jack Skellington. I'm like, who the hell is this asshole? And then I saw it was Tim Burton.
Went to Disneyland.
To Disneyland and did like a whole promo thing. I was like, oh my God. And he just like walked right by me. I was like, oh shit. And then, like perfect LA story, only a blurry picture.
Yep. Just get that blurry picture.
But it was
That
kinda
blur there,
You see
that's
that
Tim.
blob? Yeah.
See the blur with the spikes? That's
Tim.
But
Burton.
the thing is
That's
kind of
Tim
like
Burton.
the funny thing is like I think combination of Edward Scissorhands and Tim and Night Before Christmas kind of solidified the aesthetic we got from Tim
Yeah.
Burton.
Right.
Even though
100%.
he didn't direct Night Before Christmas, but it's like that's what we kind of expect out of it. But like he recently did Dumbo,
Right.
and Dumbo actually like works really hard to actually shit all over Disney.
Mm.
It makes fun of it all,
Wow.
like about
I haven't seen
exploiting childhood.
Well, that was actually something I was going to bring up. I liked his older work. I have no interest in his current work.
It's interesting. I think his aesthetic currently, and I think it's with the growth of digital.
I shouldn't say no interest, but
Like
It's
that's
very, very
harsh.
little.
Yeah.
Very, very little interest.
the thing is, like, I think with the rising of digital, which Christopher Nolan is very adamant about only using film, while Fincher is a big advocate for digital. Is that a lot of Tim Burton's film nowadays look like they have just this. Like they look like they have Vaseline on the lens, which is an aesthetic that a lot of people use to take
Alice
photography.
in Wonderland.
And
Right.
it just makes everything super soft. Whereas like in Edward Scissorhands and Beetlejuice and older stuff, there was a little crispiness to it because he used film.
Right.
But the way he lights things also, like you see hard edges off people's faces.
Right.
You don't get that with his current stuff. So it's a little interesting to see how he's evolved with technology.
The last one you did was Sweeney Todd. Was the last one he really used hard light and angles.
yeah.
Whereas
I
like
love that movie.
Which
I
did-
love that movie, yeah.
I really liked. Yeah, that was a point that I was going to bring up of just like whenever that shift happened and he made that change to a lot of CG and very soft, as you said, Vaseline-y kind of look. It it changed for me, and it's just because I liked the old stuff, and I'm not as fond of the new stuff.
what I like?
I'll ask this then. What is your favorite one?
My favorite one?
Tim Burton movie.
Yeah, choose one. No, I'm
And
saying
why is it
Probably
not
Edward
Edward's?
Scissorhands.
Oh, hey,
Yeah.
I was gonna make a
Yeah.
joke, but you picked it.
But I picked it because, of course, I did.
Yeah, boo
That's a
on
good
you.
one.
That's
Just
probably that might also be mine.
That's a good one, and I give a lot of credit to Johnny Depp for that, for acting with only saying 2 words. I think he only says kebab
I think yeah.
in the movie twice.
But Winona
you
Ryder.
know everything about him.
I would
Yeah.
also add on the Tim Burton is kind of Danny Elfman. Like
Yeah.
is
Oh,
often
yeah.
Hand in
like,
hand.
hand in hand. Like I love
Bum 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 bum.
and Oingo Boingo. I love Oingo Boingo.
Oingo Boingo is
So,
fucking phenomenal.
anyway,
Were you gonna say more about?
Not really.
Scissorhands?
I mean, pretty much I like Tim Burton, but things have changed and I'm not as infatuated as once I was.
The thing that's cool with him, I think, is that like even though I think it's a far cry from what his original works were, it's like he still gets work, and I still think he has a knack for holding onto a genre that is his alone. Like,
Oh, yeah.
like it is in the sense an auteur kind of thing where it's like he does a gothic dark comedy stuff. It's like, but it's also like versus how Fincher does dark comedy versus Coen Brothers dark comedy. It's a Fincher film.
It's got his
a Burton
own
film.
stamp on it for sure.
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
it's like that. You can't really. I don't know if there's any other director right now that can replicate his aesthetic. You know what I mean?
No.
Like,
no.
there's a lot of people like if you took a Coen film and a Fincher film and made them like closer together, like they could kind of look the same. But there's no way in hell that a Tim Burton film will look like another film
Which
next to it.
this is just a tiny little shout out to Nerd On Update. We had a question from Mitchell G about why make anything when everyone's already made stuff. That is a great point to tie into it of like everyone has their own stamp on something.
Yeah.
Go listen to that episode to talk about it in depth, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, between Ollie and mine's a little nicer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And his will
Don't
just,
agree. Don't agree with that.
But his will be based in science.
Fair.
Fair.
Corey, your
Anywho.
second boy.
John Carpenter. Shout out to Anthony and Steve's from
Aw.
the Capeless Crusaders.
Bomb.
John Carpenter is famous for me, you've heard me talk a lot about one of his films specifically on
We
this podcast.
did a fucking
The
episode. on
Thing.
it.
The thing is, no. I'm
The
just
thing
kidding.
is, but he's also famous for things like Halloween, Escape from New York, The Fog, Christine, They Live, Memoirs of an Invisible Man, In the Mouth of Madness. So he's got a big list of work, and most of them he actually writes himself and
Oh.
also does the soundtrack for.
Wow.
wow.
So he's kind of this Renaissance man, and he's highly into practical effects, which for me is a golden ticket to me liking your
Thing.
film. Seriously, like I really respect people who, I mean, of course at the time they had to, but they were also on this verge of switching to digital effects, and he still chose to stay away from it. For me, this guy is a master of suspense. I think there's very few other directors who can so well tie a story together and make you feel like you can't breathe for 2 hours, the way John Carpenter can. And you can watch his growth, which is really nice, from Halloween to things like The Thing and They Live. And all his films have sort of a purposeful campiness to it that I really enjoy. It's not too much, but it's enough to know that you can see where he started, right? You can see that like when they made Halloween, there was no budget and he just had a story. And so he wrote it, he directed it, and he wrote the soundtrack himself.
And they shot it out here in Pasadena.
Yeah. So like, I really respect, and over the last couple of years, Tom and I have discussed, and he's seen my growth, Tom specifically, in my trust in horror film directors. And because a lot of the time they start in this place where like horror doesn't get a budget.
Right.
It just doesn't. It's one of those weird things because horror movies make a lot of money because everybody at some point, to some degree, likes that, like, oh, I feel like I'm alive. I'm scared a little bit. But their budgets are always so low. So it's always guaranteed to make money kind of
They'll have to be more creative.
they're forced to be, right? So
It's
there's that
Nintendo
saying.
trying to make music off like 6-bit.
Yeah,
or
right.
8-bit.
Right. Exactly.
It's there's that there's some saying, and I forget, I'm gonna butcher it here, but it's like necessity breeds creativity.
Restriction.
Restriction breeds creativity. And he like ran with that. Everything is practical, so everything is in camera tricks. Everything is shot in a very specific way, so you see specifically what he wants.
It's
I
like
got
a magician. Like you see what he wants you to see.
Exactly. And I'm gonna like gush here a second. I got to go see him live on Halloween.
Oh yeah.
Was that with Hennick?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Adam, shout out to our friend Adam Henning. We both love Carpenter movies. We both specifically love The Thing. But he's like, I don't know, he's like 80 years old now, I think. He's in his late 70s, early 80s. And he comes out on stage. He's wearing all black. He's got a black t-shirt, black button up, black jeans, black boots, and
Wow.
sunglasses. He's got all white hair. He's got like a ponytail. And he comes out and he's like, I'm John Carpenter. And we're going to play songs from my movies.
Wow.
And they just, and
Wow.
his son is in his band. He's like, that's my son back there. Here we go. And they just get into it. And this dude, I've never seen someone so happy on stage. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, so he's
Yeah.
playing the themes and he's projecting scenes from the movies in the background.
That's awesome.
And it was awesome.
Oh my god.
Like, it was such a cool experience. And he sold like autographed vinyls, and of course, like, oh, well, no big deal. But
Which may or may not be framed and hung on
for
your
me,
wall.
just like that solidified seeing someone just enjoying the work that they've done in their life and like sharing it with people. And the tickets were like dirt cheap. Like, they're not charging a lot to go see him play his theme live. And he's just up there with his son, like having a ball at like 80 years old. And I just really respect him for that. So, yeah, John
One-
Carpenter for sure.
One thing I really loved about him, I think it was talking about one of his films, and they're talking about, oh yeah, like what about your work on Halloween and all that shit? He's like, that's garbage.
Yeah.
Like he's very like,
Wow.
in that sense of like the Miyazaki again, like the striving for excellence, never stopping to to take an easy way out.
Yeah.
And everything that comes before it has to be a shell of who you were, and you can never be like too excited for it, even no matter how good it is. Like your next thing always has to be like your better thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was very much just like, and that's how I kind of like adopt how I think about everything, where it's like, yesterday was garbage. Today will be a better day. Or the next project I do, it will be even better. Or the
Yeah.
next conversation I have will be even better. And everything, like, let's not talk about that shit. That shit's garbage. Fuck that shit. So no matter how good it was, it might have made him the millions that he all lived off. He was like, no, the next one's going to be
The
dope.
next one's going to be the one.
And
gonna
so
be
like
the
that's
one.
to me, it's like really cool. It's eccentric. But I think it's something that I think a lot of directors need to have in order to kind of move on to the next film and project. Because
Yeah, go ahead.
I was like, I think a lot of times he writes a lot of his stuff too, right?
Most of his stuff he writes. Yeah. Like 90%.
Something that I picked up from a writer and I really liked it is like writing is so easy because you love the story. But then when you write it down for the first time, it is so hard. And it's because the
Yeah.
idea is so easy, but you're in love with the idea, you're in love with the story and the action and the adventure, but you're not in love with the third act because it's so hard to close the book.
Yeah.
You have to be so in love with your ending more than you are in love with the actual story, because if you can't get to that point, you will never finish the story. And to be a writer director is really freaking hard. And to do something that as John Carpenter's done so often, like, and the thing about horror films, you got to be fucking lean. You can't make a 2-hour-long horror film. Like, you had a 3-hour-long superhero movie. You can get away with that shit. You can have a 3-hour-long epic from Christopher Nolan, get away with that shit. You can't have a 3-hour-long horror movie. You have to have 100. You have to have like 100-minute movie max.
Yeah.
90
Wow.
minutes most of the time, because people don't have patience, and people don't expect to fall in love with characters. People don't expect that there's going to be a big story out of it. So you have to get through the story, have the narrative, and be done. But he somehow masterfully does it where you do care about the characters. You do care about how the monster comes up to be, or like kills them or goes upon it. Or how does it make you feel when you leave the room at night? You know,
Yeah.
like all that stuff. And he creates these great thematic things that, like, in such a way, in such few words, kind of like his pieces, you know, like I would love to say he has cred to like Alien and Nightmare on Elm Street and Jason and all this stuff, but he doesn't. But the thing is that in such words,
He was a part of all that.
but who's the director for Nightmare on Elm Street?
I don't know.
Who's the director for?
Oh, that's your point.
You see?
Yeah. Oh, Alien, Ridley Scott.
Ridley Scott. Ridley Scott, because he's but he's the sci-fi
Yeah.
king, right? But who's the director for the first, Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Yeah.
Things like that. Like, you can tell who John Carpenter is, and
Right.
that's a sense to be held. Is like, oh, he's done something for horror films that not a lot of people do.
Oh, Wes Craven did Nightmare on Elm Street. Duh.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was like, Wes Craven's kind of
I
big,
know
but
that
I was
one.
like, Texas Chainsaw
But I hear what
Massacre.
you're saying. Yeah,
Hellraiser, Clive Baker.
yeah. So like, just for those reasons alone, and like respecting the fact that he writes, directs, and scores his own films, for me is something.
It's pretty intense.
I don't know of anyone else who also scores their own film. A lot of writer directors, but I don't know of anyone.
Robert Rodriguez, I think,
Yeah, right. But that's two,
But
and they're
it's
both
like-
what horror film directors. So like,
Well,
shout
I mean,
out to
or-
the
or
horror
just-
film
or
directors
just-
out there. Y'all got a fan in me.
Or just super low budget, like
Yeah.
$7,000 movie.
Yeah.
Kind of.
So, and obviously, I'd say my favorite movie is obviously The Thing of his, but I also have a soft spot for both They Live and Escape from New York. Yeah.
I love Escape from New York. I'm so campy
dude, I'm
and awesome.
I'm a Kurt
Snake
Russell
Plissken.
fan.
Caitlin.
So good.
I'm-
To give you
not
also
a-
reference, that's the character Metal Gear Solid's based off of.
Oh. Okay.
Snake Plissken.
Solid Snake.
makes sense.
Yeah.
I got to brush up on my Carpenter.
I always wondered why they-
haven't, the only movie of his I've seen is
But
The Thing.
I also want to give a shout out. I know it didn't age well, but Big Trouble in Little China.
haven't seen it.
It's a ridiculous fucking film, and I love it to bits.
But it's
So,
Kurt Russell in a tank top for the entire movie.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
great.
Wow.
Anyway, yeah, John Carpenter. So that's my last one.
Very
Wow.
cool.
That's it.
So, and then we're gonna save the other ones for
Save
like we'll
we'll
do
do
another.
We got plenty
we,
of-
got, we got to save it for
Hey,
director's
Josh,
part
I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I did both of mine.
So did I.
I have more to talk about.
I mean, I have more to talk
two.
about.
We
Next
all have.
time.
I have three more directors
Yeah,
I
we'll
want to talk
talk
about.
about
Yeah,
like,
we'll do
Wow.
These
If
are the
you
ones
want
that-
another one of these episodes, let us know.
Like,
Yes,
comment,
yeah.
subscribe.
Wow.
Well,
Wow.
on that, who are your favorite directors? Let us know on the social media and the DMs, on the comments below, wherever you connect with us. Let us know. We're so into having conversation with our fans and our listeners and all that jazz. Please reach out.
Can
What's
I
up?
also add, if you liked any of the films that we talked about or any of the directors you talked about, check out some of their works, buy it for real on our Amazon affiliate.
Please
Yes.
support the official release.
Yes, there.
Shop
If you go to
around.
our website onto the affiliates page, you can click through, and a little bit of your purchase does go to keeping the lights on.
Amazon,
The lights.
Comixology,
Yeah.
a couple different things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
HostGator, Blueberry. If you are interested in starting a podcast, head on over to Blueberry. They've been very kind to us. They're an incredible company.
Easy to work with.
Such a good
Easy to
resource.
work with.
Super responsive.
Their support has been. We've got some things coming, and they've been helping us through the big thing happening. And,
And if you want to support us just direct, you can go Patreon.
yes, the Nerd On Nation, just like we said at the top, anywhere from $1 to $5. There's above tiers, but every little bit helps, and we really appreciate that. And just, I'm going to go further. You listening does support us. Please, if you
100%.
liked us, share us with your friends and family. If you didn't, share us with your enemies. I mean, that helps too. What if they like us? Another big thing that's going on for us is we have a giveaway going
Yes, we
on in
do.
celebration of our 2 years. 2 years.
Meow.
We are giving away a copy, a digital copy, want to be specific, digital copy of Borderlands 3.
Yeah.
Once the winner is chosen and verified, you will be able to choose which console you would like it for. PlayStation 4.
Xbox, PC, Master Race.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah, I
got you
head to
covered,
any of our
buds.
socials for that. I believe the link for that will probably be nerdon.io//
giveaway.
Borderlands 3 or giveaway.
We'll go
That's what
giveaway.
it is.
It's always giveaway. for
Always
giveaways.
giveaway. Nerdon.io
Always giveaway.
Yeah.
/giveaway.
If we do more than one giveaway at a time, come slap us.
Please.
Please
or
do.
congratulate us because we have the ability to give away a lot of
Hey,
stuff.
because of you.
Aw.
But
Anyways,
it'd be a
cards.
love slap. That's what he's talking about.
Oh,
Slap
love
us.
slaps.
Right on.
Anywho.
Love tap.
That sounds,
slap,
that sounds dirty.
So yeah, if you want a
Yeah.
copy of Borderlands 3, check that out.
Yes.
Love slaps don't hold up in court.
But lots of good stuff happening with our 2-year anniversary. Thank you for being a part of it. But
Yes.
yeah, on that, you know the drill. As always,
Nerd on.
Ending broadcast.